Welcome to the Augmentation of Man with Kent and Renee Miller, where we are giving the future.
We're going to speak about today evolving to a higher self.
And a higher state of being.
Yes. And for those that understand what that is, you're on your way well to becoming a higher being.
So we're going to discuss what it means in part to evolve to a higher state of being. And there are many elements of our transformation as a human species. This is just part of it. It does not encompass the whole thing. And a lot of our other videos have talked about all the different ways that we are being transformed.
Yeah, we have consistently talked about this for 15 years, becoming a higher being. And what's in store for humanity's genetic change that is coming very soon. It's going to shock many. Many will not understand, but those that are prepared for this will freely go into the genetic change.
So this particular information is coming from a meditation and communication that we did yesterday, January 23rd. And so we're going to tie a little bit of what we've received in the past to it as well. So this part of this evolution begins with all these changes that are occurring in our atmosphere right now as we speak. So as we've spoken about in previous videos, that there is an absorption of smaller subatomic particles into larger particles, so that the density of the atmospheric gases is increasing. With that, it's changing the geometry of our atmosphere, it's changing the geometry of our grid, and it's changing the physical and behavioral expression of life on this planet Earth. So part of our evolution is, not part of it, the entirety of our evolution is designed by the Creator. So all the evolutionary beings that are meant to evolve, that were created by Creator, this does not include the animal world, are meant to evolve to higher and higher states of consciousness. And to be able to keep up with that, our brains have to evolve also.
Yeah, our brains, as we go through this program here, you'll see that our brains will become higher function and become denser with knowledge.
So there are other aspects of this change that's going to bring the genetics forward. And we're not going to get into that today, but we do encourage you to go back and look at previous videos. There is a lot of news out there right now about how humanity is planning to evolve humanity. And so they have this new CRISPR technology that they're using that splices genes, where they can take one segment of genes and inject it into another segment of gene to improve or change the way that those genes are expressed and how we behave. So,
and man is trying to act like God. He's trying to create a new humankind on his own.
And part of this is meant or intended, at least at first, for military purposes
The transhuman.
in the transhuman movement. However, we have been told by our guides that in this next cycle that we are about to enter, it's going to be opening up very soon, that man will not rule from the hand, but rather from the heart. And that includes that eventually we have another war to go through, but then we're going to enter this period of time of great peace. And we're being told that we will be watched from outside and all negativism will not be tolerated.
What will this new war bring? With the new weaponry, will it stick as a conventional war, like wars in the past, or we go to war with new weaponry, which pretty much brings mankind to the brink of annihilation?
So we are speaking of a different genetic upgrade that is being coordinated by God the Creator and all the higher beings. We have a lot of help that is happening beyond our field of view. This is not something that man is generating, because what happens is that man takes it and uses it for purposes of war. So this is going to be a higher state of being that is not going to be used for the purposes of something negative like war.
Yeah, for man's program. It starts with evolvement, principles of humankind evolving into a higher being.
Mm-hmm. So now we're getting into yesterday's communication.
Yes, and with that, we want to talk about, I guess you could say it's a cycle that we're in, the different things that are happening in the universe and in our solar system, the crossover, which you've heard us talk about many times, the galactic crossover. All these things are happening very quickly. And many have already happened, but they're still continue to happen. And it's trying to move us into a higher level of being where we think beyond ourselves. We are not the only entities in this galaxy or in the universe. And we have to start thinking beyond ourselves, where we send out messages to others out there saying, oh, we're warlike. What would they think of this? We cannot send that kind of message. We got to send a message of peace, that we are peaceful entities. And if we don't do that, we're going to suffer the consequences possibly.
So this meditation yesterday started out where they were talking about evolvement and principles of evolving to a higher being. And this is tied to what they called an elliptical circumference. So elliptical is how a planet moves in its orbit, and the circumference is the entire part of that orbit from one side to the other, and or the encirclement of that orbit. The orbits are tied to cycles, and those cycles are tied to periods of learning, and certain learning has to be accomplished within that cycle. So now we are starting this new cycle, and there's all these corrections that are being taken place as we speak. So Earth has to rebalance herself. Our thinking has to be rebalanced to a more truthful understanding of what really exists.
Yes.
And that is all tied to a certain point in the Earth's orbit, the grand orbit. So as Earth comes around the crest of the far side of that orbit and starting to face the center of the galaxy again, at that point, that's when all these corrections happen. So major Earth movement.
And it's not just Earth. It's all the planets within our galaxy. all
And,
of them.
and so as a unit, we're all having to come into balance, and that includes the earth. So you will see a lot of earthquakes, volcanic activity, flooding. You may see a change in the axis and the other things. But for humanity, that means that we also are not only being balanced, but we're being pushed up to the next level. It's like we're graduating kindergarten and we're going into first grade now.
Yeah, well, our brain, when I had completed a meditation, I kind of saw there would be a brain. Mankind or humankind will evolve to a more dense brain evolving without the body so much. The body will deteriorate more and more because of less and less use. The brain, we are going to a telepathy type entity. So the brain will evolve and the body won't necessarily evolve with the brain. The brain will become denser. The body will become lighter because there's less body, because it is not needed. The density relates to the amount of knowledge that the brain contains.
And so we haven't quite gotten a complete understanding of what this lighter body is, other than they've simply said that it's not going to be so necessary. At one point in the past, they were talking about eventually the brain is all that is what will be needed, because we are moving into a higher intellectual state, and our brains are going to evolve to be able to enable that higher transference of information within the brain. And so we're going to become much more curious as a species, and we will be doing less physical work. Therefore, it's not like our body will deteriorate, which is the word that you used, but I don't think you meant it in that way.
No, the body won't deteriorate away.
It just means that our bodies will become smaller because we're not going to be using them in a more physical way.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen overnight. The process will begin, and I accentuate the word begin, approximately 18, 19 years from now.
That's when they told us that it would just start to become noticeable, that our bodies and it would be feeling lighter, but also our diets are going to be changing. And we'll get into that in just a minute. So that may contribute to
probably 100 years from now before we're totally adaptable to the new change. But we are going to be so adaptable that we will be ushered into the brotherhood beyond Earth.
The universal brotherhood.
Yes.
Okay, so the brain will become denser with knowledge. The body will become probably just smaller, somewhat smaller, because we won't be using it as much. We will be more focused on our intellectual growth. And that density of the brain relates to more stored knowledge. That in itself will cause us to be able to enhance the higher self. So the more that we learn in our physical being, in this experiential learning field, we are feeding that information to the higher self, which is a part of the soul that is in charge of our spiritual growth. And that spiritual self will expand.
Yeah, and so if we really don't have a body to do the things we do now, we'll want to learn. There'll be more of a thirst to understand and learn. We'll have more of a curiosity will occur within humanity itself. And those that survive this will become extremely knowledgeable, and hopefully wisdom comes with knowledge.
And we'll have help from the outside and other extraterrestrial beings and spiritual beings. And they will also help with the level of wisdom. So in the past, they've likened humanity to having technology like a child having all this technology and not having the wisdom to go with it.
Right.
And so we tend to take all this new technology and then use it for things like war, where in the future it will be used for the betterment of mankind. The other thing that we're going to be looking forward to is that they called it a curative being to be formed. And we're assuming that curative, meaning like cure, that we will be able to heal and be healthier.
Okay, heal yourself. You don't go around healing everybody. But the knowledge and the wisdom will come to those, and they will be able to heal themselves of all in any of these wild, weird diseases that are floating off around there. We probably won't need this amount of medical personnel or stations such as hospitals. Probably won't be needed near as much.
Well, and because we are nursing along a sick system that's not based on healing people, it's based on keeping them
it's
sick.
All based on keeping the humanity sick for monetary reasons, for lining their own pockets. But we will get away from that.
Yeah. And part of the things that we'll be learning is also how to use herbs and other modalities to heal ourselves.
Yeah, things are put here on Earth that we should use and learn how to use it ourselves to heal.
And new medical advances will come forward that will be quite miraculous as well.
Yes.
And that will be coming from those outside of Earth.
Yeah, I have seen in the meditation a couple of different medical devices. It's going to be phenomenal when it's used or when it's let out to the public.
So one of the last things that this communication brought forward yesterday was the stars will reflect who we are. And in contemplating that, there's a couple of things that I think of when we talk about what does this mean. First of all, the planetary alignments will direct our path and the events that are going on here. But secondly, is that we have received a lot of information about how much Orion, that vibration affects the integrity of the human race. And Orion is going to rise to a new level and have a lot of influence over humanity and what goes on the earth. Because as you mentioned earlier, we're going through this crossover, and with the crossover, it's a crossover planetary body. So when we talk about everything has to be brought back in balance, and we've spoken about this before, is that over time, the planetary orbits start to become out of balance as well. You've got things like comets and other celestial bodies that are disappear. They go into the sun or whatever. You have suns that explode into supernovas and become pulsars. You have new planets being formed and nebulae. And so what you have is all this shift of weights within the space, in outer space. And all of that has to be brought back into balance. And how does that happen?
Yes.
The orbits are reconfigured and-
things will be changed.
and
to
they will
bring-
change.
To bring it all back in balance. And when it's reconfigured, to bring it all back in balance, I mean, severe changes are gonna, we consider severe changes. Humanity considers severe changes, but it's not.
Because of its
So-
impact on our lives.
Yeah, but but it's not severe changes as far as those outside of Earth look at it. It's the rebalancing. of
They
all-
look at
all
it
that
as a
is.
positive thing
positive
that
thing,
has
yeah.
to occur.
But we look at it as a negative thing because it affects everything that we like, everything we think we need.
We like the
We like the.
the stability and
all
knowing
that stuff.
that we're going to be comforted and
Anyway,
have a home
yeah.
and those sort of things. And
Anyway,
during these changes, that is all very precarious.
Orion does have a direct effect upon this particular planet, and I imagine some other planets within its direct realm. So we're going to have to see the total effect of astrology, one could say.
And, you know, it brings up this factor, as far as astrology is concerned, the astrologers are predicting based on the current alignment of planets. But what if those planetary
We're
alignments
shifted.
change with this crossover? Does that mean that those predictions are going to change?
That's right, it will.
That's a very important thing
Yeah.
to keep in mind. Now, we did mention earlier that the body was going to become lighter. And my question was, does this directly relate to our diets changing? Because our diets are going to change. Years ago, the guides had told us that we were going to be introduced to some sort of amino acid type food, food that is very high in amino acids, and they described it as sour is sweet. And that it would have a direct impact on the performance of our bodies. And so this, whatever this food source is sour.
It's a microscopic food source.
Yesterday, what we got in the meditation and the communication was that it was going to be some sort of microscopic type food. And so maybe if any of you can think of what that might be. Now, we don't know if it's something that's already here on Earth or something that's going to be introduced, but
I think it's here on Earth. We just haven't discovered it yet.
and is it something that comes out of the ocean, like plankton or something
Well, we
along
already
that,
know about plankton.
that,
Yeah.
you know, so leave a comment in the comment section below as to what you might
I think
think
that is microscopic.
that type of food might be.
Yeah.
It's a puzzle. They don't always give us all the information up
Yeah,
front.
and I can tell you, it's not peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah. And it looks like we're going to be getting rid of meat. That's my,
Well, that's
My
what we
guess.
feel.
Yeah.
We have not. been-
however, we have been told fish.
Fish.
We've been told
fish,
a lot of fish, lots of
that we should
vegetables
learn
and
to-
fruit.
Learn to like fish,
Yeah.
vegetables and fruit. We have not been told by other meats yet, so we're gonna have to wait and see on that one.
But it'll be interesting to find out what this microscopic sour amino high
I'm
in
thinking of
amino
mushrooms.
acids food.
Whenever you say microscopic, I'm thinking part of the mushroom society. I could be wrong, but
We have a friend who really likes mushrooms, and they are very good for medicinal purposes too. So
so anyhow.
anyway, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
And hi to all of our friends out there. We really appreciate all your feedback.
And
Please,
support, yes.
and your support very much. Please leave us comments. And if you're new to our channel, think about subscribing if you like this information, and leave us a note.
Because
We appreciate it.
Yeah, for those that are new, if you want to go along with us on our journey of discovery and finding out what makes this world tick and the human race. We like to share. And when I get meditation, then we like to share with you. We would like you to feed back to us anything that you get that we haven't gotten or heard of.
Or if you have a question.
Yeah, or have a question.
Send us the question. And if you're new to us, we have 2 books out in the Augmentation of Man series, A Study in Renaissance, which is basic spiritual principles and changes that are coming. And then the second one is the Augmentation of Man, the Acquiescence of Humanity. And this is the acquiescence of humanity into the universal neighborhood. So talking about our history with extraterrestrials, genetic changes, and where humanity's going, and all the changes coming too.
We have enough information to make the 3rd book. We just haven't gotten around to putting it.
We were told to hold it. The timing wasn't right. So
Yeah.
they are available on Amazon, and we do have a website at verdiance.com. You can visit us there. So thank you for joining us. And as always, peace be with you on your journey to enlightenment. Take care.
Have a good week.